Do you have a creative impulse? Are you inspired to do something creatively? If so, do it now. No one else is going to make your art for you. And in fact, most people would rather you not make your art. Do you think your boss wants you to make your art? No. Do you think your teacher wants you to make your art? No. The majority of our society is predicated on the idea that we can do things later, that we will have time someday to do the things that we want to do. I'm here to tell you there is no later. Later is a lie they tell you in school. This has been on my mind since I started reading this book that Les Brady sent me called The War of Art: Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Creative Inner Battles. Now, Les, I have a little bit of a quarrel with this because I have no creative battles. And of course, I have no blocks. That is the mark of a successful artist. You just flow freely, like that, the 2 or 3 days before a colonoscopy when they give you that stuff to drink. I was reading the foreword to this book. No, I skipped the foreword. I was reading the first chapter of the book about resistance, this resistance that we all have to doing the things that are good for us, right? Like, diet and exercise. Now there, I definitely have some creative blocks, but regarding art, that's never been a problem for me. And I don't know why that is really, except that early on, I realized that, yeah, it is a war. I can say without bragging that I am a prolific artist. I think that's fair to say. I have created a whole lot of art in my life. That's really different from being a successful artist, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But I think that I am very prolific because very early on, I heard the word on the street. And the secret is, artists don't know what we're doing. We have no expertise. We don't have any authority on any of the stuff that we comment on. At best, we have a little bit of craftsmanship and some feelings. But for whatever reason, we also have a lack of interest in what anyone else thinks about it. And when you don't care what people think, you just do it. You just do the thing you want to do. The hard part is, sometimes, a lot of the time, you have to include yourself in the other people. You have to hear your own doubts about yourself and decide you don't care. Your technique isn't good enough. Your equipment's not good enough. You don't have what it takes. That all comes from within. Sure, other people might tell you that sometimes, but really, if you choose to listen to it, that's coming from you. So, you can quit trying, or you can decide you don't care. This is the Gribbly's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour. That time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions. And if you are a piece of humanity with a question for me, leave it in the comments down below with the hashtag AskGribbs. I will answer any question, big question, small questions, personal questions. Any question you could ever imagine, I will have an answer for it. We are talking about this because I realized after I made last week's video that I really I didn't do my best when I was answering Grant Reynard's question. I'll go back to it in a minute. But I've been thinking a lot about this stuff because the chief frustration in my life is that I'm a really prolific artist who is also an unsuccessful artist who also these days does not put out a lot of art. And I'm in a position where, having made my living as an artist for 10 years now, 12 years, for a long time, I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm making videos in the same garage I started. My car has 200,000 miles on it and it's leaking oil. There's not a point to that, it just sucks. I got $0 saved for retirement or anything. So I feel weird because I'm a guy that has I've had speaking gigs. No, I've never been paid to speak, but people have asked me to come speak to their art classes and talk to them about being an artist. And I told them exactly what I told Grant last week, which is don't. And it sucks when people look at your life and they think this guy, making videos in his garage, he's got it figured out. Every now and then someone from my YouTube audience will come through Asheville and they will send me a message and they'll say, hey, I'm in town. I'd love to stop by your studio and say hello. And I say, I would love that too. When you find my studio, let me know and I'll meet you there in my car that runs. No, just go on in. I'll be right behind you. I'm just a few minutes late. I don't try to come across as more successful than I am. I think that there's just like an assumption that when people say, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a photographer. They think that's like a career. No, I mean, I'm literally, like, in the literal sense, like, I am a person who makes photographs. Like, that's all. It's not a real job. So the thing that I struggle with is art is not enough. I can do art. That's no problem. It's all the other stuff. It's the schmoozing and the marketing and the having, really wealthy parents. If you look back in history, your favorite artist either died unknown in the gutter or had really wealthy parents. That's how that works. That's the part that gets me. And I spend a lot of time being gotten by it. Like, I'm pretty bitter at this point about the way that works. So then I'm reading this book that Les sent, and I realized that the first third of this book is just about how to make yourself do the art. And that's when I realized how lucky I am, that for whatever reason, I grew up without that bone in my body that makes me give a shit what people think or entertain the kind of self-doubt that really stops people from making their art. I just don't care. It's a matter of, maybe it's just neurodivergence. Maybe it's just that I'm riddled with ADHD and I hyper focus on things and I can't not do it. Yeah, that's probably what it is. But whatever the case may be, if you're one of the people that needs to hear this, fuck it all and fucking no regrets. Make your art. You will not get out of it. It's like death. You can't cheat it. You're either going to make it or it's going to make you miserable. So you got two options. You can make it while you're young and don't have a lot of responsibilities, or you can wait till you have a midlife crisis and you're fat and old and sitting in your garage and getting ready to break down in front of your YouTube audience. Or you can make it later when maybe you don't have the freedom that you would wish you did. So when I saw this question from Grant that says, what advice would you give a high school person that has artistic professional aspirations like photography or design? Schooling? Just jump into it? And I realized later that maybe I had not done my best with that question because I responded from a place of bitterness to the word professional. And maybe the underlying question, especially from a young person, is how do you do your art? And to reiterate, the only answer is you just do it. You just decide you're going to do it, and then you do it. That's the only thing that does it. But that's probably something you either have to be, wired wrong to understand, or you have to learn through hard experience, and maybe they don't have that if they're a high school age person. So they're kind of forced into a situation where they have to ask, should I go to school for this? Should I just jump into it? Should I try to apprentice? Should I watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials? There is absolutely nothing school can teach you that you cannot learn on your own. Nothing of value, anyway. I will emphatically say, do not go to art school because you want to be a professional artist. That's a bad idea. If you go to art school because you like art and you want to learn art, that's fine. Do what makes you happy. But investing in education because you think there's going to be some kind of return and you're an art major? I cannot trace a single cent of money that I have been paid to do my art to having an art degree. I hope this is starting to paint a little bit of a picture. Your art degree will be worthless to everyone but you. Just jump into it. Watch tutorials on YouTube, get a credit card, and buy yourself a decent camera and go out and shoot things. I could make a killer online photography course that you could watch it for like an hour and you'd know everything you need to know. Maybe 2 hours. You'd know everything you'd need to know. It's not rocket science. What's valuable is experience. And you only get that from doing the work. If you want to be a photographer, the first thing to decide is what kind of photographer do you want to be? Photography is an incredibly broad medium. Figure out what subtype you want to be and go do that. You want to work in journalism? Show up at a protest. There's going to be a lot of them in the next few weeks. You want to shoot sports? Great. Show up at the high school football game and take pictures. Make a Facebook page and post the pictures there, and parents will come and buy them. But like, why am I not doing that? There's some, disciplines where you really need access, like weddings, but there's plenty of people out there that want their weddings photographed for free. Ask me how I know. Hey, can you shoot my wedding for free? Well, do you want photos that look like I shot it for free? Your first photos will suck. Deal with it. Like, when you look at that photo and you see that it sucks and you start to have doubts about taking the next photo, ignore them. Move on. Am I oversimplifying that too much? You have to be able to ignore the doubts. Otherwise, you're not ever going to do any of this. You want to shoot landscapes? Walk outside. You want to take pictures of wildlife? The hard part is finding the wildlife, but turn over a rock until you find some salamanders. It's all right there. You can go do it right now. And you should. Getting paid for it is a different discussion, and I'm obviously not the guy to talk to about that. I think that when people ask these questions, they're often looking for some specific, actionable advice. Other than walk out the door and do it. I would say, don't be afraid of debt. I really regret that in my early 20s, I was so afraid of debt that I did not get a credit card and buy the damn equipment that I needed. Buy what you need. Look at it like this. Filmmakers, if you want to be a serious filmmaker, your camera costs $100,000. Ouch. Somehow people still do it. Somehow there are still 20-year-olds out there making movies. I don't know how they do that. They probably have rich parents. Whatever. You can buy a decent camera for $1,000. It's really more about the lens these days. In fact, it's almost all about the lens. We should have a different conversation about this. Go buy, a 2-generation-old mirrorless camera from a reputable used camera dealer like KEH. Buy a wide normal prime lens. Don't worry about the rest. Well, if you're shooting sports, buy a telephoto. If you're shooting salamanders, get a macro. That's it. Get one good lens, specialize. Like if you want to be a generalist photographer, you want to go shoot weddings or protests or whatever, a wide normal lens will do just fine. Get a prime lens. Don't get in the beginning, I guess you might be able to get by with a zoom. Whatever. Figure out an appropriate lens and buy that. And then just pay it off. Any income you make, put into paying off the credit card. There's some actionable advice. Keep your camera on aperture priority and keep the aperture one step away from wide open unless there's a reason not to. Have good digital asset management practices, meaning get in the very beginning. This is actually something I really wish more young photographers would take seriously. In the very beginning, start a very good, solid archive structure. Because you never know when you will need the photos that you shot 20 years ago. And especially if you haven't even been around 20 years, you don't know how important that's going to be. You need a solid backup regimen. You can get programs that will back up all your stuff for free to the cloud, however you want to do it. It doesn't matter as long as you follow the rule of 3. If there are not 3 copies, it doesn't exist. And that's it. That's it. If you do those things, you will be fine. Poor. But fine. We will follow up Grant's question from last week with Grant's question from this week. Ask Gribbs, do you hear my truck? Because we were talking about hearing the trucks go by and the new audio system. My truck, the manifold rattles like a pissed off snake. Will America ever make stuff again that doesn't rattle like a pissed off snake? I don't think so. You want to hear about the only assignment I ever shot for the New York Times? The New York Times called me up and they're like, hey, it's pretty crazy that this was maybe 2014 and gas prices were skyrocketing. It's pretty crazy that anybody ever drives a Suburban anymore. We found this one dude that drives a Suburban, just bought a brand new Suburban. He's like the only guy in the entire country we could find that just bought a brand new Suburban and he lives in your neighborhood. Do you want to go take his picture? And I was like, how much are you going to pay me? And they were like, $60. I'm like, you're the New York Times. And they're like, because this phone call has gone a little long, $50. And I was like, okay. And I often think about that guy and wonder if he's still driving that Suburban. I doubt it. My first car was a Ford, and I used to say I would never own one again, and then I owned a Volkswagen, and I will definitely never own one of those again. So I don't know, but I had a great joke for a while, and it's evolved a little bit with the times. Do you know why Ford doesn't make smartphones? Because they can't get a smartphone to leak oil. He said and laughed, after admitting that his Honda Civic is leaking oil. Rafa asks Gribbs, do you have tobaccos that you prefer after spicy foods or after higher proof bourbon? Sir, I am offended that you would even imply that I drink anything but high proof bourbon. If it's not high proof, I mean, I'm not saying that because I just like to get drunk, because clearly I'm too old for that. But, I think the lower proof bourbons are not, they're just like bourbon flavored water. To answer your question, I think after really spicy food, I would not want Old Limey Bastard, which is what I am smoking right now in my Missouri Meerschaum Country Gentleman sent to me by Fireplug. Thank you so much, Fireplug, for the gift of this pipe. And in it, just as last week, once again, Old Limey Bastard. It's a very stout English tobacco, and I don't think it would pair well with stout food. I think that in an ideal world, I would probably smoke a heavy burley after a very spicy meal or higher proof bourbon. Unfortunately, as we all know, my nicotine tolerance probably wouldn't support that, but maybe one day when I have nothing to do the next morning, I'll give it a try. JT Shannon says, have you seen the YouTube photographer from the UK that makes a face like he just smelled the absolute worst smell in the world? What is that smell for you? One time I found a dead deer in the river that had been there for a long time. Les Brady has a new riddle for me. I went to the apple tree. There were some apples on it. I took no apples off the tree. I left no apples on it. How many apples were on the tree? There's not even a number in the riddle. So how would I do the math to get to the how many? That begets a number. There were some apples on the tree. Some. Does that answer it? But he left no apples on it. Left no apples on. Okay. Let's take this very literally. He left no apples on the tree. To leave an apple would mean that you brought an apple from somewhere else and put it on the tree and left it there and you walked away. But that still doesn't tell me how many apples there were. There's still no specific number other than some. Just some. Blake's Pipes says, I really need to try this video game you keep talking about. I'm not an online guy, but want to play video games again. But I just want to hook it to the back of my TV and insert a disc or a cartridge and play the game for a few months. Does that exist anymore? Yes, but you have to work really hard to get it. I think what you want is a Nintendo Switch, and then you have to ignore all the parts that want to connect to the internet. We got my son a Switch. That's not true. My son saved his own money and bought himself a Nintendo Switch. And one thing I insisted upon is that the Switch not connect to the internet, that it would never be connected to the internet. I can monitor his YouTube watching, and I can monitor his, his stuff on his iPad and stuff like that. I can't monitor his Nintendo Switch. I'm sure Nintendo has some kind of parental controls. I don't trust that. I know how to work the back doors on YouTube so that I can keep an eye on what my kid is watching. So I was like, yeah, this, number one, I do not want you getting into things you shouldn't on your Nintendo Switch. And number two, I want you to have actual cartridges that you put in your game console to play. I don't want to download games for you to play. I want you to own the game. And that was mentioned to me from the, teenage kid behind the counter at GameStop who's probably getting paid $8 an hour, but he had a strong opinion about it. He was like, Nintendo, if you download the game, Nintendo can cut access to that game whenever they want. And, they don't do that because they want you to play the game and make money. But in the event there is some sort of special circumstance, all of a sudden you don't have your game anymore. Your saved games, your characters that you built, all the hours you put into it, that's not yours. So right then and there, I was like, okay, we're going to buy you cartridges for the games that you want. I never thought about, the scenario in which there was a giant hurricane that obliterated our whole town and we couldn't connect to the internet for 2 weeks. But yeah, I was really glad that we went that route because kiddo could still play his Nintendo Switch and therefore did not make our lives extra hellish while we had no power and water. Otherwise, I think what you might be looking for can be handled by emulating older consoles. This is much more involved than it should be. There's a whole community online that emulates games. It seems to me like you should just be able to buy a piece of software from the developers of these games from back in wherever that like they should sell this. I don't understand why they don't sell this. You know, make the games $3 or something and make the program that emulates the consoles $10 and you'd make a killing. I don't know why they don't do that, but you have to basically pirate this stuff. I mean, the programs that do the emulating, I think, are legal, but the ROMs themselves are not technically legal. ROM is the word for the file that is the game. And yeah, I mean, you can play, if you want to get into this, you can play whatever you want on your computer. And you can actually get an old, broken down computer because the resources of those old games are not much. It's not hard to play these games. I have lately been playing, you ever get to that point where you think you can power through everything and you just can't, and your body is like, you need to stop before I stop you. And when you feel that coming on, that's when I start playing video games. Like real video, like to me, Minecraft isn't a video game, that's a lifestyle. But the other day, my kid was playing Metroid Zero Mission from the Game Boy Advance days, and I was like, that looks really fun. And I know about myself that when I see things that I know aren't that fun and they start to look really fun, that's when I need to stop working so hard and take a minute. So yeah, I'm playing my way through Zero Mission right now. It's really awesome, actually. It's a really good game. Is it fun like fly fishing is fun? No. Is it fun? Yeah. John Gallieri reminds me, 10 years ago, I started smoking a pipe exactly 10 years ago on my 40th birthday and stumbled upon your channel, and I was the 26th subscriber. Thank you, John, for 10 years of subscription to the Gribbly's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour. And that wasn't even a thing until, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. I don't remember when we started the Sunday Antisocial, but you know what I mean. Thanks for sticking around. Somebody else left a similar comment and I responded to them directly. They said that, they came for the pipes and they stayed for the stick fort and the Tenkara fishing. And it's funny what we've been through together, right? The stick fort was a pretty good era. DT Redmond says the color card taped to the back of the slate is a mark of true professionalism. Right. When you, I tell people, the mark of a professional photographer is bungee cords and duct tape. Like you've learned enough from the School of Hard Knocks that you know to always have that on you. I think that's also the mark of a serial killer too, so we won't talk about that too much. Stix3969 says, okay, how many of you pipe smokers inhale? Don't lie. I don't know how to answer that. I'm just one pipe smoker. Is this like another Les Brady? How many pipe smokers are on the tree? I left some pipe smokers on the tree. Do I inhale? Absolutely. Is it like smoking a cigarette? No, it's not. I don't know if that's where Stix was coming from. I think all of us pipe smokers we're a little bit sensitive about that, We do not inhale in the sense that cigarette smokers inhale. I'm not drawing a pipe in the way that I would draw a cigarette if I smoke cigarettes, which I don't because they're disgusting. Back to Stix's question. I think that, the French inhale is what most pipe smokers do, where you smoke and you draw the smoke. I don't know how to explain this. And I've never been one of those pipe channels where I get close to the camera and let you look at the machinations of my mouth. That's not something I do. I'm sitting here hyper-focusing on how I actually smoke a pipe now. So yeah, you fill your mouth with smoke. You don't draw it into your lungs. You fill your mouth with smoke, and then you release it, and then you breathe in through your nose to experience more of the pipe smoke. It's not about sucking down nicotine. It's about experiencing the taste of the pipe. And I think that when people ask that question, what they're asking is like, you pipe smokers, you think you're better than cigarette smokers, but actually you're inhaling too. We are inhaling too, and we are better than cigarette smokers. That's all I have for you today. Happy Sunday. Oh, I was gonna say it's gonna be, when this publishes, it's gonna be Sunday the 26th. I thought I would start time stamping my Sunday Antisocial so that 10 years from now we can all know when a video was made. That's pretty funny that we might still be doing this in 10 years. Yeah, I like that. Always end times here on the Sunday Antisocial. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.